It's been said that everything we are or will ever be begins with a single drop of water, that each drop brings a sacred gift, and that as these drops accumulate to form streams, rivers, lakes, and seas, completing the cycle with returning rain and snow, life renews from year to year just as it does from generation to generation. Water means life for us all. Whoever you are, whatever you do, you and everyone you know or ever will know absolutely depends on a safe and reliable supply of clean, fresh water. Maintaining that supply of fresh water that we all depend on for our health and well-being in the face of ever-increasing threats from overuse and pollution requires constant vigilance. A new threat to our water supply has emerged in North America over the last 2 decades that has the potential to forever alter our ability to access and use those vital water resources. That threat is the rapidly spreading invasion of quagga and zebra mussels. And our attention and vigilance is needed now to safeguard our life-giving water resources for future generations.
Hello everyone, I'm Senator Dianne Feinstein, and during my time in the Senate, it's been a great privilege to work here in Washington and also back home in California on many issues that affect our critically important water resources. And I must tell you, nothing is more difficult. I've sponsored many bills to help make certain our waterways remain healthy and vibrant. But now, we're facing one of the most difficult challenges we have ever experienced in the form of invasive quagga and zebra mussels that threaten the very nature of vital water resources. And so there's nothing to fight over. We all agree these little mussels may look harmless, but in the following program, you're going to see the devastating effect they've had on water supply, on recreation, on agriculture, power production, shipping, and wildlife. They have also cost water users in the eastern United States billions of dollars over the past 20 years. Today, these mussels are spreading west with potentially greater impacts. There's no question we've got to stop them from spreading. So this is something that all of us need to take very seriously. Whether or not we fish, boat, or use our great waterways for recreation, these little mussels are dynamite. They will affect you and your pocketbook if they become established. Now, it's not too late to prevent these invaders from spreading, but if we don't take action now, these mussels will spread from one area to the next as hitchhikers, on boats moved on trailers, and equipment moving between waters. If you look at one of these mussels and you figure it can produce 1 million additional mussels a year, you begin to know the kind of threat that they are. This program will give you the tools you need to play your part in stemming the tide of this invasion to protect our economy, our ecology, and our great cultural heritage.
Zebra and quagga mussels are 2 closely related freshwater species in the genus Dreissena, which are native to an area of Eastern Europe and Western Asia commonly known as Eurasia, specifically the Black and Caspian Seas. In their native range, these species evolved in an ecosystem that included a complete set of biological and physical controls that kept them in balance with their environment, including predators, disease, and physical water quality conditions that limit their distribution and numbers. In the late 1700s, Dreissenid mussels spread to Western Europe when an elaborate system of freshwater canals were constructed to facilitate the transport of goods and services throughout Europe. Because this occurred before the peak of industrialization and included many of the biological and physical controls that kept them in balance in their native range, the impacts to Western Europe have been significant but manageable. Sometime in the mid-1900s, zebra and quagga mussels were introduced into the North American Great Lakes, most likely in the ballast water of a cargo ship traveling from a European freshwater port. The first reported finding of dry-scented mussels in North America occurred when zebra mussels were found in Lake St. Clair in 1988. During the following decade, zebra mussels spread rapidly, principally by downstream larval drift, but also on watercraft and equipment, to infest nearly every waterway connected to the Great Lakes, including the Mississippi and St. Lawrence rivers. And by the late 1990s, they were found in 23 states and 2 Canadian provinces, all east of the 100th meridian. Also in the late 1900s and early 2000s, a secondary invasion occurred when quagga mussels, which had represented only a small percentage of the mussel population before then, began to dramatically expand and by 2010 nearly completely dominate the dry-scented mussel populations of the upper Great Lakes. Since then, they have continued to expand their range, primarily by hitchhiking on trailered watercraft and equipment moving between watersheds. But it wasn't until 2007 that dry-scented mussels were found west of the 100th meridian, when quagga mussels were found in Lake Mead, and subsequently in downstream Colorado River impoundments and all connected waterways of the Colorado and Arizona aqueduct systems. In January of 2008, zebra mussels were found in San Justo Reservoir in Central California, and 2 adult zebra mussels were collected at Pueblo Reservoir in Colorado. However, while zebra mussels have become well established in San Justo, no additional adults and only a few veligers have subsequently been found in Pueblo Reservoir. Zebra and quagga mussels are relatively small freshwater mussels, ranging in size from just a couple of millimeters to a maximum size of about 5 centimeters, typically reaching sexual maturity at about 2 centimeters in length. While these mussels get their common name from the alternating dark and light bands that are often found on the outside of the shell, the pattern and coloration of both zebra and quagga mussels varies widely, often exhibiting few or no stripes at all. Both quagga and zebra mussels are similar in appearance and share the most distinguishing characteristic: the presence of byssal threads that are used to attach to any object of their liking. No other freshwater mussel in North America has byssal threads. The difference in appearance between the mussels has mostly to do with the shape and orientation of the 2 halves of the shell. Zebra mussels have a pronounced D shape, while quagga mussels have a more rounded shape and overlapping shell edge. This difference is not important. If you find any small attached mussel in freshwater, it spells trouble and should be reported immediately. Both mussel species reach sexual maturity at about 1 year of age, sooner in warmer and more productive waters. A single female mussel is capable of producing up to 1 million eggs a year with multiple spawnings. Fertilization is external and usually begins when water temperatures reach the low 50s. Fertilized eggs become free-floating planktonic larvae called veligers and remain in that state for 2 to 5 weeks while they accumulate calcium and develop a shell before settling on suitable substrate. Once settled, mussels are able to detach their byssal threads and move to find better conditions before settling semi-permanently. Zebra mussels prefer to attach to hard substrate, while quagga mussels do very well settling on soft sand or silt bottoms as well. Zebra mussels prefer near-shore areas in up to 100 feet of water, while quagga mussels are also found in very deep offshore areas to more than 400 feet. The typical lifespan for both species is 4 to 5 years, though individual zebra mussels have been found to live for more than 10 years in some cold water lakes. Dry-scented mussels are filter feeders, filtering up to a liter of water per adult mussel per day, selectively consuming desirable phytoplankton that would otherwise be used by important game and food fish, while avoiding less desirable plankton species, including certain types of blue-green algae, and then depositing waste and filtered sediment as pseudofeces to the bottom. Since dry-scented mussels can occur at densities of up to 100,000 or more per square meter in some waterways, this action completely transforms the ecosystem of the host water body. Zebra and quagga mussels can have far-reaching and devastating impacts to water supply, power production, recreation, fish and wildlife, shipping and navigation, and other important economic, cultural, and ecological resources. It's been estimated that upwards of $5 billion have been spent mitigating the impacts of dry-scented mussels on water delivery infrastructure in North America since they were first found in the Great Lakes in 1988. And while no comprehensive economic analysis has been done to calculate the total cost of this invasion on the ecology and economy as a whole, most experts agree that its true economic impact is probably several times that amount. This is an issue that touches everyone, not just boaters. If mussels become established in your area, it will likely result in increased fees and taxes, higher utility and food costs, severe boating, swimming, and fishing restrictions, increased maintenance costs passed on to consumers, lower waterfront property values, and economic hardship for local businesses that service water-based recreation.
It's imperative that we understand that as a natural resource, water is the basis for what we have here. Not only the recreation, but our farming in the south, the fisheries that we have, tremendous fisheries in Idaho, and in the entire Northwest. And this is not an issue that we can look the other way at. It's actually, this is the last stand.
Well, as we've seen zebra mussels enter our state and spread within our state, there's been a change in attitude in how we look at things, where at first people just thought it was limited and localized sort of impact, but as we've seen it quickly spread, there's been some interest in trying to understand the dynamics of these populations. And one thing that's become quite clear is that no one in Kansas is protected from the impacts of zebra mussels or other aquatic nuisance species.
What we've shown is that the productivity in Lakes Michigan and Huron are about 80% below what they were prior to the zebra and the quagga mussels coming in. And in fact, productivity and the phosphorus levels in the lakes are lowest that we have ever seen since we've started making the measurements.
So the ability of zebra and quagga mussels to completely transform aquatic habitats would be a huge problem for just even fish passage alone, changing the fish passage facilities to the point that they're not usable by these fish, changing the habitat so that the food that they depend on is no longer available. Any one of those could be devastating for our native salmon and steelhead.
The one thing that really frustrates me the most, and the tribes as well, is that the threat of these mussels now represents a very large black cloud hanging over the basin. We've had tremendous success in recent years with resurgence in our salmon runs. We have great programs on the ground to restore habitat, but all that could be for naught if mussels find their way in and colonize the Columbia River system.
We've already seen the dramatic impacts that quagga and zebra mussels can have on the food web in aquatic ecosystems, completely re-engineering plant and animal communities and nutrient levels. Those changes can result in major impacts to commercially and recreationally important fish species and diminish overall fish abundance, size, growth rates, fishing opportunity, and catch rates.
Well, as the quagga mussels establish themselves offshore, in these high densities offshore, the round gobies moved offshore, and they've moved out now to 450, 500 feet, have large populations. They just followed their food out, okay? And they're, like I said, the latest estimate is somewhere between 10 to 20% of the fish biomass in Lake Michigan now is round gobies, just phenomenal. So not only do you have more dry-sceneds in all fish, the one fish you got is one that people don't really even like that much. Because it's expanding, it has definitely competed with the yellow perch, and the yellow perch is one of the primed fish around here.
We have documented a decrease in the abundance of some fish species. We have documented a decrease in body condition of some of our sport fisheries. And so zebra mussels are not a good thing for fishermen.
Hatchery systems are also susceptible to dry-scented mussels. When hatcheries become infested, fish production is either terminated or severely curtailed, resulting in a major reduction in the number and distribution of game fish available regionally.
Well, we'd fully renovated this facility for trout production at a cost of about over $10 million. Shortly after mussels were discovered in Lake Mead in early 2007, we found them here at the hatchery. And at that point, we realized that the water supply that we had was infested with mussel veligers as well as other life stages. And we also had a full load of trout here at the hatchery, a full production. We had to get rid of those fish, Because of the potential of transporting mussels from the facility, those fish could not be put anywhere but Lake Mead and Lake Mojave, and then shut the facility down completely and did a thorough cleaning. This facility was designed to plug a big hole in our statewide trout production for sport fishing, and that represented, a third to almost a half of our planned statewide production for sport angling. So taking this facility off the table was a very significant impact, and we just have not had any way to replace that.
In addition, these invasive mussels promote the growth of nuisance and toxic algae populations that can affect swimming, boating, and other forms of water-dependent recreation. Colonies of living mussels and windrows of dead mussels can cover the lake bottom and beaches, making recreational use of these areas difficult, undesirable, and dangerous because of their sharp-edged shells.
Lyngbia on the bottom will accumulate throughout the season. By August, there are places where you will find a fair carpet of it on the bottom. Then later on in the fall, what has happened is that washes up on shore and can get meter deep accumulations of it in some places depending on how the wind's blowing. So it's very unaesthetic, and homeowners and people that use the shoreline really don't like it.
Recreational boaters are also affected when mussels attach to the exterior surfaces of watercraft and clog internal engine cooling, raw water storage, and circulation systems, resulting in increased maintenance, operation, and repair costs.
I think right now the biggest issue we have with the quaggas is people absolutely wanting to protect their boats. We've taken over the hydro hoist business. People want to have their boats lifted out of the water to keep the maintenance down on them.
They clog up all the water intakes into the drives, and when that happens, the impellers get ate up and you'll lose a motor in a heartbeat.
And it's not only fisheries, beaches, and boats that are affected. Recreational docks, boat lifts, and other equipment important to recreational boaters like navigation and mooring buoys can also become encrusted with quagga and zebra mussels, creating increased maintenance problems and decreasing the effective life of this equipment, making it difficult on commercial and recreational boaters alike.
As a marina operator, we see zebra mussels forming on every structure in the marina. They form underwater, around places where people recreate. Increased cost to us as far as maintenance goes, and the maintenance of all the marine equipment, cost and time. It just goes on and on and on.
The cost if we were infested by zebra mussels, probably the cost to maintain things would be a concern. Some other areas that not only with the marina here, but other areas of lake that the Clay County takes care of. The golf course operates out of here. They have a water intake. If this lake was ever infested with the zebra mussels, we would definitely lose some traffic. It would scare people away if there was an area lake that was, within 30 or 40 miles that did not have them. We would probably lose a few to those. I would hope not, because I obviously don't want to lose any of our customers or any of our slip holders, but I definitely think some would choose to go another area if their boats were being affected by the lake quality.
Because Lake Mead is a reservoir and the lake levels do fluctuate, one of the impacts to our visitors is also visitor safety. We can typically see as the lake levels go down, mats of quagga mussels, and that increases calls to our rangers for medical services, people cutting their feet.
All of these recreational impacts have very significant negative effects on water-dependent businesses, local economies, and waterfront property values.
The health of the ecosystem in Lake Pend Oreille is key to the economy here, and invasive mussels would change everything, and I think it would leave our economy pretty well damaged.
Our largest issues that came about after the zebra mussel find was the questions, the scare. Once the word got out, it spread pretty quickly that that all of a sudden Smithville Lake had zebra mussels.
The key to preventing quagga and zebra mussels from expanding their range and disastrous impacts throughout North America is aggressive action. There should be no doubt that the benefits from preventing their spread far outweigh the costs of implementing comprehensive prevention programs that include outreach education, watercraft interception, early detection, and rapid response planning elements. Make no mistake, this is a preventable disaster, provided we are willing to act decisively and work cooperatively.
So the real problem with this problem is that there's very little we can do about it now. Once the zebra mussels and the quagga mussels have come into our system and have taken over in this sense, there's very little we can do about it. So the only thing we could have done is prevent them from coming in the first place.
9 out of the 10 lakes that we have infested in the state of Kansas could have been prevented. Someone brought zebra mussels to each one of those lakes. It was not through natural spread. And that's the interesting thing about zebra mussels. This spread is preventable. It's not inevitable that these will be in every lake across the country. It just depends on how much resources we're willing to dedicate to this issue.
One of the critical issues that the general public can get involved with on prevention of zebra and quagga mussels is taking actions themselves. This means cleaning, draining, and drying your boats. Government agencies do not have enough money to do everything that is necessary to prevent quagga and zebra mussels from spreading in the West. Therefore, all citizens, especially those that use recreational watercraft, fishermen, boaters, these folks have got to be on board and doing everything they can to stop the spread.
We're all anxious to get in the water. When we're on our way to go fishing, that's all that we have on our minds. But what we need to keep in mind, what needs to be top of mind, is that these fisheries are worth preserving and they're worth protecting. And once these mussels invade our waters, they're going to be everywhere. So spending a small amount of money right now on prevention is worth a pound of cure later. And so the inconvenience today is well worth preserving a fishery we might not have tomorrow.
All I can say is don't move a mussel, because they multiply so fast, and prevention is going to be costing you way less than it would cost if you're going to have to keep up with the maintenance, and we've definitely seen that.
There's only so much money available through these projects, and so we need volunteerism. We can't emphasize that enough. It's vital that we have that. So anybody that lives out there on a lake, or they recreate or they use those systems, join your local lake association and participate and encourage them to do monitoring at your ramps, your boat launches.
I really applaud the West for the way their attention they're putting on prevention and keeping the boats out. That's the way to go. You spare nothing to keep these mussels out of your lakes, absolutely.
Every individual and water-dependent enterprise is affected when zebra and quagga mussels become established, because we all depend on water. So even if you don't boat, fish, or recreate on your local waterway, you need to be aware of this threat and do what you can to help prevent their spread and control their impacts on water supply, power production, food production, and the thousands of other things that we've come to rely on from a safe, reliable, and economical supply of fresh water. It's vitally important that the limited resources available to combat the mussel problem in North America be maximized. To accomplish that, all agencies and organizations involved in the battle must coordinate, communicate, and cooperate to the greatest extent possible.
So the Fish and Wildlife Service largely plays a coordination role in zebra and quagga mussel management in the West, and that role is really important because we have limited resources and so many different avenues that require work for preventing zebra mussel invasion, early detection, developing rapid response capacity, and it's critical that states, other federal agencies, tribes, the private sector are all working together and all on the same page.
If you're a boater, seaplane operator, or water-based equipment provider, you need to take direct personal responsibility to thoroughly clean, drain, and dry your watercraft and equipment between uses. If you're a water resource manager, you need to implement prevention programs to safeguard those resources and encourage and support your neighbors to do the same. And even if you're only a food, water, and power consumer, you need to encourage and support Dreissenid mussel prevention and control efforts through your elected representatives. Minimizing the impact of these invaders on our lives and pocketbooks will require a team effort. Please do your part and stop aquatic hitchhikers.